I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. on December 19th. If we could do Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Attendance and appointment of alternates.
I guess I didn't see her.
Did you say she was parking?
No.
For both ones.
It was Simonelli.
All right. So if we can have a motion, please, to appoint Alan in Cindy's place.
Appoint Alan Baker as the alternate in place of Cindy Cruz.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And an approval of the agenda?
I'll move we approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Public participation. Crickets. All right. Communication.
Did we approve the minutes?
Oh, you did it?
No.
I'm like trying to squeeze this right along here. All right. Approval of minutes, November 20th regular meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on November 20th, 2018.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Okay, we'll try public participation again. So, same thing. All right, off we go. Communications, I have nothing. Amy?
I have nothing.
All right. Monthly reports.
All right, so you want me to just give you a summary, and then if you have questions, you can ask?
Yep.
All right,
Sounds like
for
a
revenue,
plan.
the only thing that we need to talk about is the state gave us $500,000 extra in pilot money.
There's my question, right?
We budgeted
Did she
$50,000,
answer me?
and we got $500,000. We actually called to make sure it was really.
I was going to say, how did that work? Did we make sure? that we're-
Apparently, they had budgeted it at the 550, but my staff just couldn't believe that that was really true. Why was it going up 10 times more than it was? But it really was true. So it came in.
But I remember as we were doing the budget, it kept, like, every week, it seemed like a moving target, and it kept changing for
I know,
us. So
but-
I'm guessing
One,
that added to
I
it.
would have never budgeted something $500,000 more than was $50,000 last year,
Mhm.
even if I had seen the number.
Right,
Because I'd have been like, yeah, that's gonna happen. The state's going up, how many times? I'm like, yeah, not happening. So I wanted to be there. So, but that is not gonna be a surplus for us for this year.
What was the logic behind that, or just?
That was just the formulas on how they did pilot this year. So, and we happen to be on the winning end of it. It's no new properties, it's the same properties we always get pilot for. It's just that much bigger. So that's our one revenue surprise.
Well, Merry Christmas, but now you know what's wrong with our state. It's
It's
like,
hard to imagine.
yeah, exactly.
We actually called, like I said, we were like, yeah, really.
Had
that
you not,
is no
I think
way
we would
that
have
is
asked
ours.
you to.
Huh?
I said, had you not, we would have asked you to.
Yeah, we were like, there's no way. And then they said, yeah, that's really, and he's like, oh, I see why you're calling. You used to be 50 and you're now 550? Yeah, that's why we're calling.
Well, hopefully he didn't note that.
Right, exactly. Note to self. Next year.
And like I said, I don't know what they do with the formula, but, so we have $500,000 extra revenue. Expenditures, you will see two items in the red if you looked at the expenditure reports. One is assessor travel, and we talked about this last year, and you guys were unhappy that I came to you after the travel had happened. So I'm coming to you now to tell you that right now she can cover her deficit out of her supplies, but there's more travel coming. Apparently, the courses that the woman has to take to become an assessor, she has to travel to like Yukon to go to. And apparently it wasn't budgeted, and it's a requirement of her job for the assistant assessor to go to assessor school. So it just wasn't budgeted correctly last year or this year. But it's definitely something that's going to need a transfer eventually. You don't see a transfer on tonight. And then the other thing is building repairs. Some of it you know a little bit about. We talked about Scott Hall over the summer. We had done a $5,000 split with them on one of their heating, cooling systems. Well, then a second thing broke on it, so there's another $5,000 coming, which is almost half of their $10,400 repair. Town Hall has had some intended budgeted maintenance and upkeep. Annex have had some maintenance and upkeep. Town Hall Heat has had some issues with $10,000 tag for heating and air conditioning here. And Annex has had some heat stuff for about 30 grand. So we are totally out of money in our building repairs.
Stinks.
And we're 6 months in. It happens, I mean, buildings break, things need to happen. So that is building repairs. Joe is here if you have any more questions, but I don't think, did I miss anything? I mean, I did go really thoroughly through anything to see, anything that looks really far, either really too low or really too high. I take time to go through and look at it and see what's going on, and see what you guys need to know about.
We're experiencing a lot of HVAC units that are on the annex. There are 9 of them. They're really developing some severe problems with heat exchangers and
Those are the ones on the roof?
yes. Matter of fact, I've been babysitting one for the last 2 weeks. Almost every morning I have to go start.
Do you have portable heaters like we have?
Yeah, he does, he comes steals them from here.
Yes. The other quick question I have was on travel. Do you guys know how much money you spend on travel? Would it be more economical to maybe purchase a small car, like a, you know, Toyota something, or
Maybe that
just a
will
thought?
come.
Okay,
Well,
so-
no, we have the town car, the old police car.
Well, it's an old police car that really isn't the most reliable car to be sending someone all the way to
Yeah, I was gonna
Newcon or New
say.
Haven or.
Well, yeah.
Bridgeport.
Or gas efficient.
I just was,
Back to Scout Hall though.
Okay.
Are we anywhere on, I know at one point in time, you were trying to figure out exactly what our responsibility was versus their responsibility versus, have we gotten anywhere with that?
The lawyer drafted something coming to what we would be willing to compromise with them on, and what things we feel are ours versus what things we feel are not ours. And, but we have not met back with them. Bob went through it, made some changes. I was pretty happy with what the lawyer wrote. So we have not sat back down with them yet.
I mean, after the first of the year, we'll send them what the lawyer has, so we'll send them what we think the agreement should be. And then we'll sit down with them and see what they have to say, although.
So I'm pretty adamant that I think we need to do things attached to the building. The roof, the windows, the siding. And that if they want to replace their tile with ceramic tile, that they're more than welcome to at their cost. That it's not my responsibility to make things pretty. It's not my responsibility to build a vestibule for them as another set of doors so they have some storage room for 40 grand. So a lot of things they brought to this capital, to the CIP group, I was adamantly opposed to. That, not feeling that those are really the town's, huh?
As was the rest of us.
Well, I was gonna ask you a CIP, I was gonna get to that.
So they had also asked for one of the fixes to the HVAC, but in between, we had to fix both already. So the one unit has basically the 2 big things tied to it, have both been replaced now, for a cost of $10,000, which is way cheaper than the $40,000 to $50,000 estimate they were giving us as a
Exactly.
CIP project.
Yeah.
And our feeling is, that's fine, if HVAC is gonna be on us, that's fine, but we're gonna bid it and we're gonna use our guys to fix
Right.
it. So once we get to a point where we agree, right now, the lawyer said we could not pay half of their bill. We had to write the check to Scout Hall. Scout Hall had to pay the whole bill because we didn't use our procurement process. So because they're not using our procurement process, we can't then pay a share of their bill. We did pay the first one that way, but after the lawyer said we couldn't, the next one we did not. So, I mean, it is our building, we own the thing, but it's really about who's going to be responsible for what, and who decides. whether
Well-
it's a repair or a replacement. So if we're going to be responsible for HVAC, then it's our guys that are going to decide whether it's a repair or a replacement type of a deal. So,
All right, so no answer yet. It's
but it's almost an oxymoron. How can you have capital and repairs?
That doesn't seem to
It's
make
either
sense.
capital or it's a repair, but that was the terminology that was used in 1995 when he built the building. And it's for a 99-year lease.
Well,
Not that I'm looking for more responsibility to maintain another building, because that is not my point here. My point is,
Well, it sounds like you already got it.
not really,
No.
not really, I don't,
Well, but he's gonna be, this is what the problem is though, is he has a point well taken, is that if he doesn't maintain it, some of these things that are gonna end up broken, had they been maintained and had they been
Well, I will say, I
on
think you're
top
doing a
of,
good
it
job
wouldn't be.
of maintaining. They just have different standards than us. You know, we don't replace a floor until it's literally falling apart. Where they, oh, it'd be nice to have ceramic in here, it would look nicer in here. Well, that's fine, for 50 grand, you're more than welcome to put ceramic in there, but the town would never do that.
Right.
Yeah, and you know,
So-
this is kind of the same road, I'm sorry, that we went down with Warehouse Point Fire, right? So who owned the building, who thought what was important, who
Yeah.
did the bidding for it, and, yeah, so we need to, everybody really understand what this agreement is, and it needs to be agreed to.
Do you have to bring it to your board before it goes to them? Do they have to approve it before it goes to them?
Well, I don't know.
I think we probably have to have a discussion with them before we do anything else. I mean, because we haven't come
yeah.
back to them with our lawyer's comments and changes yet.
Right.
I mean, there's a difference of opinion. They would love us to take on the tile floor, the vestibule that they want built. They would love us to take that on.
I'm sure they would.
But I'm pretty firm standing saying, I'm not going to do the nice to have things. I'm going to do the things that absolutely have to keep the building, a roof on the building, windows that can open and close and keep the heat in, you know. So that's my feeling, is we need to do what we need to do to maintain the building, but that the other stuff is not, nice to haves are not going to be paid for by the town.
Yeah, as Amy said, that lease that we're looking at was drafted in 1995, I think even maybe before the building was built. And it's Scott Hall that's coming to us and saying, hey, look at this, section 6 of this, it's a paragraph and about maintenance, and you have to do this. And we're saying, wait a minute, I don't think we do. And so now we're in a debate.
Okay.
I would be firm on what I think the town should do. It's just a principle thing.
Yeah.
Like
No,
you
I
said, we have
disagree.
floors, how old are your floors in your schools?
Oh, 16, yeah.
And here it's 20 years old, and they're going, well, it's really worn, it's 20 years old. And I'm like, yeah, look around you. I mean, so we just have a difference of opinion on when they would like, and that's fine, that they want to rent it for weddings and stuff, that's fine, then they can do the upkeep.
And that's all
and
your
the-
revenue to pay back that $50,000 for your pretty ceramic floor.
So that's my feeling. It's the stuff that they want to have, they're more than welcome to do, but not on the taxpayer's dime.
All right, so the next step is really to bring the lawyer stuff to your board and then go from there.
Yeah, or even
Or we'll
to
talk to them about it,
right, we'll probably
because they
sit down
could
and have
reject it, they
informal,
could say,
see
no,
how
this
much-
is junk, and we'll say,
And we
well,
could
then-
still take it to the lawyer, take it to the board and have them approve it in the lawyers. I mean, the lawyer drafted it for us.
Yep.
So even if they say not happening, then they're in the spot they're in and everything's on them. Because
Right.
a 99-year ground lease for the lawyer is everything's on the tenant. When you take a 99-year lease, it's all yours. That's not how ours is written. But if we were out in the commercial world,
Right.
nothing would be the town's responsibility.
All right. Next is Bob, updates and referrals.
Yeah, I'll pass out some stuff. This is a report that came December 12th, so. take one and pass them down. I'll keep one. And this is for a structural engineer, from the structural engineer. We walked through the Broadbrook Mill building, and on the second page is a nice picture of it. And we looked at the interior. There's some pictures out both the inside and the outside, and there's definitely a leak on the roof. On page 4 you can see that. And there's a lot of mold. On page 6 you can see the mold, page 7. But I guess the most significant thing in the whole report is on page 9, is the conclusion. And it says, in summary, it is the author's opinion that the majority of the structural framing supporting the building is in good condition and capable of reuse. So basically she's saying that you can reuse the building. And the reason we had this done is United Technologies Aerospace owns the property, and they were going to tear down the building. So having her look at it and saying that it's sound is an important step. And just to back up a little ways, about at the end of the summer, it looked like UTAS and DEEP had agreed on how they were going to remediate that property. And basically what they were going to do was tear down the buildings, move some semi-volatile chemicals, and consolidate it behind the church and put an impervious cover over it. Impervious cover. So, and then put about maybe 1.5 to 2 feet of soil over the other 8 acres of polluted area and leave it. And we didn't think that would be good for development, and we didn't think it would be good for the town, especially the consolidation area of polluted or chemicals or contaminated chemicals. So this is one step. Actually what happened is we were discussing it at a Board of Selectmen meeting, and the JI caught wind of this, and it was published in the JI, and then someone flew in from Ohio to talk to us about this. And he was a good person, and he listened, and he said, we'll try to get somebody, and we'll market it, and maybe we can get somebody commercial in there to pay taxes. And we said, great. And he also said if we produce this report and it looked like the building was salvageable, they'd take that into consideration. So they're slowing things down. They're not just doing what they probably could have gotten away with doing. So we're seeing if we can save the building or not.
Did we ever get a cost on soil cleanup there?
Yeah, we did. We did. There's 1,300 cubic yards of this contaminated soil that they wanted to consolidate. There's also 8 acres of contaminated soil, but that's primarily coal ash, so that's not so volatile as these other chromiums and some cancer-causing chemicals. They wanted 1,300 cubic yards, which is about 90 truckloads. And so we called up, the fire department deals with these people when there's spills, so they have to have people come clean them up. So they called their guy, and their guy said for $400,000 they'd take the 90 truckloads. And then we had another one say 250, so it's in that range, about 250,000 to 400,000. And interestingly enough, the state has given UTAS $3.9 million to clean this up, but somehow there's not enough money in that $3.9 million to take that contaminated soil out, which we might have in fact, one of our next steps is to go to DEEP and kind of probe just a little bit further why they can't remove that contaminated soil.
$400,000 at $3.9 million.
Yeah.
And 3.9 just for that one site?
Yes.
And nothing's happened on it?
No, I think they already spent 2.6, and it seems to be just studying it and monitoring it, and that's about it. Certainly not fixing the roof. That wasn't something they intended to do. But and I've been saying myself a lot, and we, but it's the committee, the Broadbrook Mill Remediation Committee that's doing this work, and they're doing a good job. So that's one thing. Here's another handout. Take one and pass it down. I'll keep one. Now, this is something we, I think, wrote this week. We wrote a check to State of Connecticut for $216,468.75. And that was to buy the development rights on 15.5 acres of, or 115 acres of, and it shows you where it is. It's at 334 Scantic Road. And if you look at Route 5, it's you can see that it kind of is towards, very close to South Windsor, where the Nutmeg Restaurant is, and actually there's a place called Skank Road, just about where Skank Road is, and that's where West River Farms is developing those homes across the street from where this farmland is. So this has been in the works for, and the money's coming from the Open Space Fund. And Lori Whitner was working on it before she left. They've been working on this for a couple of years to get there.
And the state kicked in $650,000.
Yes.
R216 to buy the development rights, so almost $1 million for development rights on 115 acres.
State paid 75%, we paid 25%. It abuts the Scantic River in one place. Then another thing, I probably should, well, I'm going to bring it up to the Board of Selectmen, but we haven't looked at it. But Grace Church is up for sale. And that Grace Church is down on Ellington Road. It's not very far from here. And Melissa Maltesi called it to my attention because, and maybe Joe and Melissa and I can go out and look at it. I'm not saying we should buy it. Well, after we look at it, it could be for like maybe $350,000 you could get a senior center, and that try to get a senior center for $350,000. So it's something to consider. But so we'll see how that plays itself out. But now that we've got a $500,000 coming in pilot payments, maybe I can find a place for that.
I think we already spent that.
That was on town meeting.
Exactly.
No, I know you need, obviously to buy property you need a town meeting. Then charter revision. We had that survey. We talked about the survey at the last Board of Selectmen meeting. And I have to say, Bill, I'm glad you suggested we increase the default. And also, and then maybe Amy's going to talk about, we bonded this week and sold over about $1 million worth of bonds, I think. And with us was Mark Chapman, who's
IBIC.
IDIC.
No, IB.
IB, okay. And he's really good at understanding marketing of and securities and things. And one thing that if we change probably anything in the charter, what we should do is exclude debt service from the default, because for the cap. So you can't say, well, if the budget defaults, then we can only raise the debt service or the payment of the debt by 2%, because then we can't go borrow money. They'd say, well, what if you don't pass your budget? Then you can't pay the debt. So that's going to cost us more in interest rates. So that would be a good thing to change in the charter. And speaking of that, at tomorrow's meeting, we're run out of money for the recording secretary. So if we want to have any good recordings from now on, we're going to have to cough up some more money. And as Amy mentioned, we're going to talk about the over expenditure of the assessor's budget next meeting too, tomorrow. And that's the Board of Selectmen.
Any questions? Anybody? coming? Nothing? All right, Board of Ed updates.
Good. Better than last time. So I brought two things. I brought, even though you didn't ask, but the last time we spent a lot of time talking about the cafeteria. So I brought the plan that we developed. Perry, and Andy and I, Perry, the bulk of, you're welcome, spent a lot of time working on some strategies to try and improve our subscription to the school lunch program. So, and there are some things that are already in the works for after the break. So, you're welcome. Since you're well acquainted with our cafeteria issue. So I thought you might at least like to see that we have the plan. We have already added the free and reduced lunch applications in 4. Survey that is in process for students that will go out after the start of school to see what their preferences are. At Broadbrook, they've already started decorating the cafeterias. They have seasonal winter stuff up, which draws the kids in. So there's definitely some things that are already happening. She's going to be putting, starting in January, like a bullet or a little paragraph in all the parent newsletters that go home at the beginning of each month to just highlight the work the cafeteria is doing. So these are just some, some of the things that they're either doing or are going to increase doing. So, just thought you'd at least like to see that we're moving along. She's met with a lot of, or a number of food service directors, local or that have districts similar to ours, to see what they're doing. A big thing that she's hearing from other directors, which Andy and I have talked about, but it's really sort of a non-solution, is moving salaries out of the food service budget. So we could move salaries out of food service budget, we just have a bigger deficit in the regular budget. So I'm not sure. Well, I appreciate that it would look better on the food service side. It doesn't really fix the problem. So she knows that too. It was just sort of, but he'd look better for a little while. So, but a lot of these things are very positive, and she is moving in the direction already. So some of this stuff will happen after we get back from our break.
How's the deficit this year so far?
Holding. Oh, in the cafeteria? I don't know. I need to get an update specific to cafeteria. The big picture, though, is we're holding. So, so I guess that's, well, it's not great. It would be better if it was less, but it's not more. The update that I gave you is the last update to the Board of Ed, and I will share, it looks worse because Andy presents worst case scenario, but truthfully, it's not, because right now we're looking at, we have less money anticipated coming in from our open choice seats, but we have tuitions, additional tuitions coming in, and an increased money in the special ed reimbursement through the choice program, and at this point those offset. So that's sort of a null, but he reports here that negative, but does mention that it does look like we're going to offset. So we've had changes. We had a student in and out of district placement leave, but another one came in. So everything, we've had changes, but since the last time I was here, pretty much things have, It has ebbed and then flown, so we're holding. And the percentage of our budget for special education is 27.
Any questions? I know.
Is that just a general, or?
I don't know, I mean, I didn't think it was that high, but I guess it is.
Well, I will say truthfully, we have, in the past, I would say 3 or 4 years, our numbers of students in our substantially separate or very specialized programs, like our autism program and our transition program, have grown pretty significantly. And when you have students in the 3, 4, 5-year-old range that are severely involved with a significant diagnosis, that's a lot of people. So, you know, we have a fair amount of staff to support our special ed programs, but the positive is that we have those people in-house, and we don't need to send students out to a day program, which is where, you know, years ago, that's how we educated students with that level of disability. We also have staff in-house now that are board-certified behavior analysts, BCBA, and we used to have to contract for that service to come in, but now our staff that we already had got certified. So it's another body that we're paying for, but it saves us a lot of money in contracted services, and we could have afforded to contract for the amount of time she's available. So. But it's a lot of people to address the needs of our severely involved population.
And the better you do, the more you get.
The double-edged sword.
Correct. We have definitely had some experiences with people moving in because we have programs available. They call Freddie, our registration clerk, and call Patrick and say, I want to tour your programs before I decide where I'm moving. Like, no, you can move, and then we'll show you what you have. It's not a commercial, but, you know, we have had those phone calls, so it's great that people want to come. We have to pay for it. So.
They do an excellent job. I can talk firsthand.
Thank you, Joan. So, I don't know if there's any other questions.
Are we still having financials next month?
That's the plan, yeah.
January.
Yes.
Yep. Anything? Anybody?
And we are starting to do our work on our FY20 budget.
Yay.
I know, because this one's going so well. We gotta do another one.
Let's just go do the new one.
We'll just skip the
Start
rest of
over.
this one, yeah.
Start
But
over.
we might as well get moving early. So, okay?
Perfect. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, on to new business, our audit presentation.
Oh, do you want this one?
You already used.
All set?
All set.
Okay. Does everybody have a package?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Again, my name is Mike Van Dieter. Is there any new board members?
No, I.
You met him, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice to see everyone again. Happy to be here to present the results of the fiscal year 2018 audit. I will say I did bring draft copies of both the financial statements and the federal and state single audit reports. Although we are substantially complete with the audit, we are still working through these financial reports. So I do expect that we may have some changes over the next couple of days before we actually issue, but they will not be material in terms of the information that I'll provide you guys this evening. I will not be going through the financial statements and the single audit reports in detail. I'll go through our presentation, and then certainly to the extent you have any questions, feel free to ask as we go along. All right. In terms of the scope of work, we did perform an audit of the financial statements in accordance with both the auditing standards issued by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, as well as the government auditing standards issued by the Government Accountability Office. In addition, based on the level of federal and state funds that were expended by the town, we did also perform a federal and state single audit. We performed the federal single audit in accordance with the Uniform Administrative Requirements and the state single audit in accordance with the State Single Audit Act. In addition, we also performed and agreed upon procedures on the end of school year reports that are produced by the Board of Education, and those procedures are required by the State of Connecticut Department of Education. So no change in terms of the scope of work that was performed. In connection with our audit, we do issue multiple reports. The main report is the report on the financial statements. We will be issuing unmodified opinions on your financial statements. Again, our opinion provides reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from a material misstatement, whether due to error or fraud, and that they've been prepared in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. Our opinion does cover multiple statements within your financial statements. It covers your governmental activities. Each of your major funds for the town this year was your general fund, your capital non-recurring fund, and your capital projects fund. And then we issue an opinion on what we consider to be the aggregate remaining fund information, and that includes all of your non-major special revenue funds, your capital projects, permanent pension trust, private purpose trust, and agency funds. And all of those funds are detailed out in the supplemental information in the financial statements. In addition to the report on the financial statements, we do issue a report on compliance and on internal control of the financial reporting. It's important to note here that we're not actually expressing an opinion on your compliance with laws and regulations or on the effectiveness of your internal control. During the course of performing our audit, if we identify what we consider to be material noncompliance that would have a direct and material effect on your financial statements, or a material weakness in your internal controls, we're required to include it in this letter. So we're not reporting anything in this letter. We do have some recommendations that I'll go through at the end of the presentation, but nothing that I felt rose to the level of being included in this letter. In connection with the federal single audit, we issue a report on compliance and on internal control at the federal award level. Here we are actually expressing an opinion on your compliance with the grant requirements. For fiscal year 2018, your total federal awards expended was about $1.3 million. Your major programs was the special education cluster and the community development block grant. That was for the elderly housing complex improvements. We did issue unmodified clean opinions on your compliance over those programs. We did not identify any deficiencies in your internal control over compliance. We issued a similar report on this in connection with the state single. The majority of that is considered exempt from our testing. The portion that was not, the $1.8 million, your total major programs was the Town Aid Road grants, your local capital improvement program, and your open choice program. I am going to run through some highlights in terms of the financial statements. Again, I do put in here that these are draft numbers, and they are subject to change, although I do not expect that they're going to, again, change significantly. Your original budget did contemplate the use of fund balance in the amount of about $475,000. Appropriations of about $1.1 million into your capital non-recurring fund. Your actual basis was an increase of about 1.4, favorable budgetary variance of about 2.5 million. Your revenues were approximately 2. Of those funds. Your overall expenditures were approximately $682,000 less than budgeted. That did represent approximately 1.8% of your original budgetary appropriations. And I did note here that you have assigned $450,000 of your fund balance for spending in your fiscal year 2019 budget. And again, no budgetary non-compliance issues that were identified. This next section goes over your governmental funds financial statement highlights. And again, this includes your general fund on a GAAP basis, as well as all of your other non-major governmental funds. Total fund balances were about $15.5 million, which was a decrease of about $857,000 from the prior year. That fund balance consists of about $10.4 million operations. Your capital non-recurring fund has a fund balance of about $2.7 million. All that's committed for capital purposes. Your capital projects fund is showing a deficit of about $490,000. That deficit is driven by the use of short-term debt to finance the middle school roof improvements. Once you issue the long-term debt and you get reimbursement from the state, that deficit will be eliminated. Your overall net OPEB liability was about $3.1 million. You do have a trust that you are funding. It is currently 25% funded. Again, that's using the discount rate of about 6.5%. A number of municipalities have not established trusts to fund this, so I think it's only going to benefit you down the road in terms of funding the increases in healthcare costs. And then I do have a bullet here on the state teachers retirement system. Although you do not carry the liability for the pension and other post-employment benefits that are provided by the state teachers retirement system, the state does put out information that allocates the amounts that relate to the school districts. For the town of East Windsor, the net pension liability was about $34.3 million, and the net OPEB liability was about $8.8 million. So that information is disclosed in your financial statements. Again, it's not reflected in your balance sheet, as you have no legal requirement to fund those obligations. I know there's been a lot of discussion at the state about pushing some of those costs down onto the municipalities. You can see that it is a significant debt to the state of Connecticut, so it'll be interesting to see what they do in the future. And the overall on-behalf payments that were made by the state on behalf of the district employees were about $2.6 million for the year. Any questions as far as the overall financial highlights? No. This next section goes over our required communications, and again, these communications are required by our auditing standards. The first bullet here talks about our responsibility under our auditing standards. Although we do assist in the preparation of the financial statements, they are the responsibility of management. All the information that is included in the financial statements does come from management. It's our responsibility to perform our procedures and express our opinions on them. In terms of the plan, scope, and timing of the audit, there were no changes in the overall scope that was originally agreed upon. We did actually experience some delays in the reporting process as the state did not release the information related to the net OPEB liability until I think it was December 7th. So we had to include probably an additional 4 pages of disclosures, some additional schedules in the financial statements for all of our clients. So that did take some additional time for us on our end. Although we do plan again to issue all reports by the December 31st deadline. In terms of significant audit findings, we do review the town's accounting policies. Again, there's no issues with your accounting policies. You were required to implement a new accounting standard, and again, that did result in an adjustment to your beginning up position, and you will see some additional disclosures in the financial statements. I think in terms of the financial statements, I think there's probably like 15 pages of disclosures on your pensions and other post-employment benefits. So that does take up a significant portion of your financials. In terms of difficulties encountered in performing the audit, we did have some additional time that was required to reconcile the school district's accounting system to the town's accounting system. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in terms of our overall recommendations. I think Amy probably really had the most time in terms of the overall audit process this year. We had no uncorrected statements, so again, if we identified an adjustment and we proposed it to management and they did not want to report it, then we would be required to disclose that to you. We did not have any disagreements with management. We will be obtaining a management representation letter. Again, there's no unique representations that we're required to inform you of, and we were not aware of any consultations with any other independent accountants. And then in terms of recommendations, I have here the accounting and reporting of the school district funds. And again, I kind of bulleted out what the issues are. I've had discussions with both Amy and the Board of Education in terms of Andy and Christine. The school district, the issue is really that the school district and the town's accounting systems are not integrated. So in an ideal world, everybody would be on the same system. Right now, the school district does not maintain a complete trial balance within its accounting system. So they're really tracking revenues and expenditures. They're very expenditure driven. They know their budget and they're spending against their budget. But they're not necessarily tracking the cash balance on a monthly basis and reconciling it because they don't have it in their accounting system. So the balance sheet accounts are really determined by the school district in preparation of the year-end audit, and they're not really provided to the town throughout the year. So the town is maintaining a complete trial balance for each of the school district funds, but the accounting for these funds are only really capturing the disbursements that are made by the Board of Education. And again, there's some journal entries where the where the school district reallocates expenditures between their general budget and grant funds that may not be communicated in a timely manner. So all these things kind of results in some reconciliation issues between the funds maintained by the town and the funds maintained by the district. At the end of the day, we didn't have any adjustments that affected the Board of Education's information. So the issue really is just the communication of the financial information between the Board of Education and the town. So in terms of recommendations, again, a formal reporting process should be implemented that provides really the following financial information to the town. I'm recommending a monthly summary of activity, receipts, and disbursements for each bank account that's maintained by the school district, excluding student activity funds. Monthly and year-to-date summary expenditure and revenue reports for all funds maintained by the school district. And then at year-end, a detailed schedule of amounts due to the school district and amounts received and unspent for grants and tuition. And then again, at year-end, a detailed breakdown of amounts encumbered between expenditures and commitments. So I think this additional information would provide your office with the ability to record the adjustments in the town system and keep all those funds on a modified accrual basis of accounting, which then flows into the financial statements. All right. So this is just something that I think, as a board, you might want to follow up on. Again, I think you guys will be implementing this kind of going forward. I mentioned that I could work with Andy and maybe establishing a monthly reporting package that can be utilized. So that's something I'd be happy to do in January. All right.
No plug from Eunice?
What's that?
No plug from Eunice?
Okay. Well, that
Help us out.
that was the first bullet was integration. So Munis,
We got it.
Munis would eliminate all of that kind of monthly reporting issues. So. And then I did have a bullet on the year-end accounting reporting for SUA assessments and connection charges receivables. The roll forward that was provided by the tax collector in terms of the amounts that were levied, billed, collected, and the balances outstanding did not agree with the customer balances reported in QDS. Again, the information within QDS was deemed to be accurate, so the issue is really verifying the roll forward schedule that's provided to the finance office with the information that is in QDS. So we think we have some reports that we'll be able to utilize going forward, but that's something that they should be looking into is, are there additional reports that they can run from the system that would give them better information in terms of reconciling those balances at year end?
And I'll share that I found it. When I got the roll forward, it was actually negative, that we owed people money on our accounts receivable for sewer connection fees. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes no sense.
Yeah, right.
They pay 50% up front, and then the rest of the 50% they pay over 7 years. So I'm like, how can we owe somebody $111,000 for
Right.
what they're connecting? So I got the report and went, show me where this is made up. Who do we owe that money to? And as I dug and dug and dug, we found out that the numbers actually weren't accurate in the prior years. So it was something that I had to take what I could get for the best reports. There are other reports, but the way QDS works, you have to run them on June 30th to get only June 30 activity. You could run them in October and ask for June activity, and you're going to get July, August, and September activity in there too. So even though you're specifically telling it what date you want, it really doesn't work that way, the way the QDS is set up.
And
I'm
then-
not sure if that's a here thing or not, because I didn't have that issue in Canton, and we use QDS there too. So I'm not quite sure why the QDS can't generate a report after the fact, going back to a certain date. I can run you any report. If you asked me for June 30 of 16 reports, I could run you a budget report, and you would see June 30 of 16 numbers in it. So I can't quite get how any kind of financial system that's accounting for billing and money coming in can't regenerate something for a period in time if you tell it you want June 30, why you can't get June 30 in September. But I did my best chance trying to figure out all the pieces and who owes us what money and what it's from, and those are the numbers we went with. And it's positive now, people owe us money instead of us owing people money.
That makes sense.
So QDS, it's a good system, especially for taxes. I have noticed these issues in terms of the sewer assessments and other municipalities as well, in terms of how they're accounted for and the reporting features to it. I know they're trying to make improvements to that, but again, so we'll continue to work with QDS and at a minimum run the reports that were identified as being helpful in terms of reconciling that information. All right. And that pretty much concludes our communications. Again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions, anybody? Anything, comments, questions? That was
Painless.
so far.
So far.
So far. Well, thank you very much. Right on to 11B, charter revision recording secretary.
Which Bob already did under selectmen's.
Yeah. So you're just gonna tell us about it?
Well, he was going to tell you it under there, but he jumped the gun and did it under selectmen. But we will ask for a transfer. If they approve it tomorrow, we will ask for a transfer in January.
Anyway, I think tomorrow we'll ask for a transfer of $1,375 for 11 more sessions.
So why are we past, obviously, what we passed? Why do we need more? I'll put it simple.
Didn't we budget something?
We did budget
No,
something.
we didn't budget anything. What we did was we did an additional appropriation in June for July of $1,500.
Well, I didn't because I can't vote, but yeah, you're
So that's the money that's been
Spent.
there already, but,
Yeah.
so I guess the question is, if we thought it was only $1,500 when we went forward thinking that's what they were gonna need this year, how come we're all spent of that in only 6 months?
right. Because that's all anybody gets. They don't
Well,
get.
we're, because it's 2 meetings a month, and we pay $125 for the recording secretary.
So somebody didn't do the math right when we first asked for it.
No, we asked for 3,000, and we negotiated 1,500, so we got this far, which is very helpful.
So there must have been a reason. Well, yeah, he asked for 3,000 is what he's saying. We would only give them 1,500 because half of this board didn't think they should have a recording secretary and half of it did. So we all met in the middle at 1,500. So now I remember. Now it's all coming back to me. All right.
So I really didn't have anything to say about that.
Okay. So
S&P.
that's January. It'll come to fruition.
So
Okay. Yep.
we had to bond the $1 million that was left on our share of the middle school roof because we had done 2 bond anticipation notes prior to me getting here. I think the last one was sold about 3 days after I started here. So, and I literally had nothing to do with it. But, so we had to go for a rating, and I chose to change to S&P. We had traditionally used Moody's, and we could never get anything above AA2. And if you looked at our financial strength, it should have been higher than that, but Moody's framework is very rigid. And they tell you, yeah, you need to get, your tax base needs to be $1 billion. And you get it to $1 billion, and they say, oh, well, now the state's not in good shape, so that's not going to change either. So when you put them through the framework, they stay at AA2 for almost any town our size. But if you switch to S&P, you can get benefit for strong financial controls, good fund balance, good policies, good management. And so we did. We went to S&P, and we were upgraded. We went to AA+, which is just 1 step below AAA, which is the highest you could get. So it was a 1 bump upgrade. And our total interest cost is 2.1% on that $1 million. Oh, and we're doing it over a 7-year period of time, what we sold, the bonds we sold. They're non-callable, but they're only 7 years. And that's 2.1 is the effective rate.
And just talk, I was sitting there too, if I can
Okay.
just say that it was, when we sell bonds, I guess it's done online now pretty much, and we had, it was 11 o'clock, all the bids had to be in by 11 o'clock, and we had 9 bids by 11 o'clock, which is pretty good for a small town with $1 million, and very good, as Amy said, interest rate of 1.2, or effective interest rate.
2.1.
2.1, I misspoke.
So, but in there's a report. So there's a few things we need to talk about. On the actual ratings direct report, the summary report with a table of contents on it, the things that are noteworthy are, one of the things is the Board of Ed needs to report monthly, regular financial statements. That was one of their strongest concerns, that even though they report irregularly or come when things are going on, they really want to see true monthly financial reports. What's going on, what's being transferred, what's being moved around. So that's one piece. And the other piece is really on us for 2 reasons. Our CIP, we do a good job of looking at the needs like right now and what we're going to ask for the general fund, but we don't do a really good job of looking forward out, or forward out in any kind of planning capacity. So the 2 things they're looking for is, I do a CIP analysis. I don't know, did I put it in the package?
I think so.
The 5-year one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want it a little longer. They want it on legal size, and they want over on that far right column, how we're paying for it. So they want us to identify what we think is coming out of operations versus what we're thinking we're bonding, what we think we're getting grants for. So we need to do a little more work on capital and planning. The other planning piece is like a 15-year plan. Trending salaries, trending benefits, trending other services, And I'm starting to work on it, but I will tell you, my financial software is miserable here to try to rework the numbers other than the one report you guys get. So that will be a process. My goal is to have it done before February so that we can look 15 years out and see what it's looking like when we sit down to do budget. So that's my goal for long-range planning. But in between, we have already started our budgets also. We have had our first two, and having me in that table is going to be a very eye-opening experience for many of our department heads. I'm asking, that's great, the numbers are up, but what about statistics? What about the number of transactions you're doing? What did you ask for last year? Just because something's going down doesn't mean necessarily it's a good thing. If you forgot to put in this license that you need, you haven't done us any favor if everything else has gone up. I want to see what you asked for last year, what you're asking for next year, and what the differences are. So, so I think it will be a little bit eye-opening for everybody who's sitting at the table with us, but that's my strength. My strength is picking something up and saying, there's something not right. And that's great, you can go down, but why? What did you do to actually make it happen, just not that the numbers aren't correct? Because I want to make sure that everything we need is truly budgeted in there. And if they're saving, great, but I don't want them to be artificial savings that then I'm 6 months later going, well, you know how we didn't budget quite enough there because we did that decrease? Well, now I need that increase because now people need it because there's something that they need to cover that they weren't thinking about. So, so there will be more questions asked at the table. They've been pretty good about the ones who have come to the table and I've asked for more information, but it will be a new experience for them. So those are our big ones, and that's the upside, you know, how we get to AAA. So capital planning and long-range planning are both plus sides on that upside. But I do have no intentions of have to going out to bonding, at least in the very near future. I'd like to see us a few years out before we need to do that.
That's a good question about that, Jared, the capital side of that.
Yeah,
So,
because you're the
yeah,
CIP person.
because typically, most of the departments come to us with just what they need for the next year.
No, so we need to ask for 5 years.
And, well, it's there. When the request goes out, it says 5 years. Board of Ed is always really good about giving us 5 years. And so that was all in
So
there.
part of it
Some of it
would
was
be-
like, you know, some of Joe's stuff is recurrent, so I was able to just project that out for 5 years. We know that that's the same.
Well, part of
every
that will
year,
be the
but-
forms we send out.
So we're gonna
I'm
change
learning,
that.
I think we should.
Okay.
So I think, because what we did is, what year do you want it in? Here's your 5 different years. What year do you want it in, and what priority within that year is it? So if you have 3 things in this year, and you prioritize a 1, 2, and 3, and we only do 1 and 2, automatically that third one ends up your first priority next year, unless you tell us something different. So, you know, us as a group, we've now come up with the number that we're gonna put forward, which is fine, but all those things we didn't fund, now have to find a home somewhere in the
Right.
next 4 years.
Right.
So some of that needs to be, so maybe after we get all done with the this year piece, maybe we have another meeting after the deadline to get it to them, and we sit down and we talk about where you're thinking, when we're thinking, how we're thinking we're paying for them. And so that would be my suggestion, is that that group maybe meets a little longer than it has in the past, and has maybe a little different charge, because we truly need those 5 years.
Yeah,
What we're really thinking, it shouldn't be you and I figuring out what the next 5 years is gonna look like.
right, which is what it was this time.
And it looks like for several other, because the chart I did was one that was mimicked from 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
That was done for the official statement. So unfortunately, when we go out to bond, they ask for things that we don't do regularly. So you're recreating something. We have some models that are out there that, from years ago. I sent you one, I think, from 11. So we have some historical information, but we just, yeah, it needs to be a more thorough effort. And how we're paying for them was a huge, they want to know what you were next thinking bonds. But I did do, I think I sent you guys the one that had the school projects grouped together. So you could see, so there's one out there that just has, these are the list. Then there's another one that takes the schools and groups them together. So you can see that there's $3 million at one school, there's $2 million at another school. So I think it's in the package, but the back side of the sheet, the first side is like town side, and the back side has Board of Ed, and I grouped it by schools. So if we were gonna do a school project, you would know what you were looking for and how you were gonna approach it. Or if you're gonna knock off just the small pieces through CIP, then we could do that. But then some of the bigger pieces, like one of them needs a $3.6 million roof, That's clearly not happening out of a $1 million CIP,
Right.
because that means nothing else for the next 5 years to get it paid for. So, so we need to think about how some of that stuff is looked at, things that haven't happened in the past, and just really need to.
Perfect. Nice job. All right, so we are on to unfinished business, budget meeting dates.
I think your guys' big two dates are when you want to have your public hearing and when you want to hold your workshops. I think there's a date in there for the Board of Selectmen and Board of Ed's public hearing for February 5th.
Yep.
The Board of Selectmen sets it. It's a calendar that they set. Let's see.
I hope we can make it.
I know, right?
I have it in here?
What?
I put it in here, the dates.
Yeah, you did. It's on page
It's on the last
yeah,
page.
12A1.
Very last page. Okay, so the calendar that the very 12A2 is the Board of Selectmen's actual one, and you can see that their meetings are going to be somewhere between February 7th and February 28th, with a budget to you on March 15th, and then the presentation of the budgets to you guys is at your March meeting, March 20th. But the charter requires at the beginning of the process to hold a public hearing, the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed hold a joint public hearing. So that date has been assigned as February 5th. And then you guys have nothing for your budget workshops and your town, you have to have a public hearing too, I think. It doesn't even look like it's in here.
No, it's on the page before blank.
Oh, so it got missed in theirs. So there's two things we need to, and the other thing we need to do is the mailer. We'll have to think about the timing of approving the mailer. I don't know if we have a charter thing 10 days before the town meeting or the first referendum, but that's usually the timing. We want it to go out somewhere around May 1st probably. So that will mean we need to approve it probably at our April meeting. And I don't know what you guys thought of the format, if that works. Then we'll have to talk about language in the letter, depending on how our budget season goes and how the state of the state is.
I think we had our public hearing on the March 28th this last year.
And they presented what, on the 21st?
Yes,
Budgets, yeah.
yes. And then we had a budget workshop right after the public hearing.
Yeah, I remember that. So if we followed the similar, we would do it on the 27th, which is a large Wednesday.
Yeah,
Right.
that would be a week after. They got presented to you.
Is there anything in here on that day?
Nope.
So why don't we do that? Everybody good with that, March 27th?
Public hearing 7, and then a meeting after?
Okay. Yes, because the one time we held it at 6, everybody chopped our heads off. And are you guys okay with doing a workshop after?
That's fine.
Is that the date of the public hearing? Did I miss?
The
March
27th.
27th, yep.
March
27.
27th.
Just an FYI, Bob, February 5th may be difficult for me.
Okay,
because of work. We have something we do 3 times a year, it's that day.
That
We'll
day.
be there till midnight,
yeah,
if it
okay,
doesn't go well. So we'll chat.
okay.
What day of the week is that?
Tuesday.
Would it be better if we moved it for the Monday? Or?
Possibly. Yeah, probably.
What about you guys? I mean, technically, you don't have to be here because it's a Board of Selectmen, Board of Ed, but
Yeah.
most of the Board of Finance.
Usually we do, and I will say that the 5th and 6th, there's 2 weeks where they gave us supposed meeting dates, and that's one of the weeks on the 5th, 6th, and 7th.
So would the 4th be better for you?
Yeah.
Can I look at the calendar?
Sorry, I don't mean to be difficult.
No, I wouldn't have, if it ends up in that week, it won't be me.
The 4th has zoning Board of Appeals.
Well,
Is that something we could have then?
we'll look into change, make it, probably do it somewhere else.
Because there's actually commissions in here anyhow the next night. There's Conservation and Agriculture are both in here
Okay.
Tuesday night.
Board of Appeals might not even meet anyway.
So
So
probably
we
the
wanna
4th
think-
is the
Yeah,
best.
we want to think of the 4th instead,
Yeah,
and then you need to ask your board, maybe
Right.
tomorrow night you could ask them.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. So then we need to, between the 27th, back to March,
And the 17th.
and the 17th, set up times to meet. And And not to make it extra difficult, but school vacation is April 8th through the 12th, so I will not probably be around some of those days. That kind of falls in the middle of the two. Always does. Do you know what's weird is usually our Board of Finance meeting falls in the middle of that vacation, but it doesn't this year. Strange. That's a good thing. So, I guess if we can look at the first week of April. If anybody has, how are you guys looking through the first week of April? Does anybody have any commitments or anything that's falling there? So I'm sure we can.
I don't go anywhere that time of year, so whatever it is.
All right, so I guess we can always find different places to meet, so we would just have to get creative. So,
I will tell you, for the CIP group, we did a lot over at Park Hill, and it worked out really well.
okay.
We'll tell you, you guys spent some money down at the annex, and it's beautiful.
That's true, we haven't been down there, you are correct. All right, so, I forget how many we did last year. What did we do, like 3, 4?
And permits for Saturday and
I know, her book, that goes back.
I've got my 2-year plan.
We have to bring it next year.
Well, we did, let's see, in April, we did April 3rd. April 5th, we had it down, but we canceled that, I think. We did April 11th. Yeah, the 3rd, the 11th, and then we had one the 29th of March also, right up. So we did the public hearing and a workshop the 28th of March. Then we did one the next day, the 29th. And then we did April 3rd and April 11th.
All right, we could do something similar. We could do, the next night is a Thursday. Yeah, so after the 27th, it's the Thursday. Is everybody open on the 28th if we do one that night? All right, so why don't we do March 28th?
And we're doing these all at 7 p.m.
Yeah. And then it brings us into the first week of April. So do we want to choose like a Tuesday and a Thursday, so we're not meeting every single day in a row?
But the Board of Selectmen, don't, they meet the first Thursday, right?
Right.
So we wouldn't be-
Tuesday, first Tuesday.
Or we'll be able to-
Thursday.
Thursday.
Mhm.
Thursday. We
Thursday.
would be able to
They
use
switched
this
to
room.
Thursday.
Oh.
Where are you bed, Alan?
Resting comfortably, huh?
All right, so we have Tuesday, we can do the 2nd, right? All right, so let's do that.
Or you can do Monday, Wednesday. No? Well, I'm thinking.
Well, we could move
might
somewhere
right, We
else.
might move somewhere else too, so.
But I was thinking Tuesday, Wednesday.
Oh.
Yeah,
You can't be in two places, really?
As good as he is.
Oh, yeah, that's true, he's on Wednesday. Well, it can either be Monday the 1st or Thursday the 4th, and we just meet somewhere else at the selectmen. They're here, we meet somewhere else, but, well, you might have to, well, you don't really tend to ever have to be there, do you?
Board of Selectmen?
Yeah, depending on what it is.
Nope.
But, we'll throw it out there, the 1st or the 4th,
Along with the 2nd, right?
along with the 2nd.
Okay. Doesn't matter to me.
4-4.
4-4? Okay. 4-4. I'll just find somewhere else. All right, so that's 4. So we can just see where we are then, and then, unless we want to do an extra one just in case. When do we send it off? The 17th?
Yeah.
So we can always do one for Monday or Tuesday as a safety precaution, and then
Okay.
just
Cancel if we need to.
cancel it if we need to.
That's fine.
All right, Monday or Tuesday.
15th or 16th. Because the week
I don't
after
care.
is school vacation. So you're skipping the whole week.
Yeah.
Okay. Your school vacation's that next one?
I don't see how it does that. Is it? Yeah.
Okay.
So this one will just be a precaution anyways, we probably won't be doing it. Actually, we can't change the 17th one though for the public hearing, so.
Okay.
All right, why don't we do the 15th? It's a Monday.
Did you say you're doing on the 27th also?
Yes.
March 27th
Yeah.
and March 28th.
So after the public hearing, you'll do one?
Yeah.
And then the very next night.
Yep.
And then the
All right.
2nd, 4th, 5th.
FYI, if you're going to be discussing us, she'll be gone the 15th.
Yeah, no, and we're hoping not to even have that.
I understand, yep.
I hope. I truly hope.
Especially with no recording secretary. Especially with no recording secretary.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
I don't.
You would not like my scribble.
Secretary.
I could watch
Think of us
There you
when
go.
each of your.
you.
I mean, laugh
Can I ask
at
one
it.
other question about the schedule? I
Sure.
think you said March 20th was Board of Selectmen presentation to the
And
Board of
Board of Ed.
Finance and Board of Ed?
Yep.
That's what I wanted to clarify.
Yep.
Yep.
March 20th.
Do you guys want to be added on to my distribution of, I now create an electronic package of this and send it to the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen?
Sure. Yeah. My calendar fills up fast.
All right. I lost my agenda in this mess. I know I'm at that end. Yeah. Well, this one's not mine, but I won't.
So the only thing that we need to talk about a little bit is our chart of accounts, and as we start budget here.
Mhm.
We found out in the summer, which I think I brought to you, that we were not UCO compliant. And what we're finding is, there's accounts called professional services, and it's got all kinds of things jammed in there. It's got legal advertisements put in there, it's got printing put in there, printing and binding. So
And we
some
move
of
money
them,
out of there for other stuff that it shouldn't. Yes.
I don't think that's true. But it's very hard, especially legal ads. They're X dollars and they need to be there.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure when we merged as many accounts as we did, trying to simplify things, we didn't make a little bit more of a mess.
Could be.
And we do have some balance sheet accounts the same way. We have a clearing account that we shove all the Connecticut state fingerprinting fees in, all the town clerk dollar fund fees in, and all the tax sheriff fees in. And none of those clear, it's not like they come in and go out. Like if you put something like somebody's retirement in there, you're gonna collect all the money and you're gonna pay it out and it's gonna go to zero. The fingerprinting fee may be 6 or 8 weeks in between, so they overlap over a 3-month period to get them all cleaned out, and in between you're doing all the new ones. So it's never zero from the state of Connecticut. And it's very difficult to track them. So I'd like to see some of that stuff broken out, but you guys have a requirement that we can't add accounts without your guys' permission.
Right.
So I don't have a specific list of accounts, but I think we need to consider that, especially in the 1920 budget, breaking some of the stuff out so it makes more sense for where we're spending our dollars.
So I would say.
So I wasn't here,
let's start
obviously,
to
when you
create-
guys
Yep.
mushed them all together. When somebody thought it was a good idea to just make 3 accounts for somebody and they have to figure out how to spend those 3 accounts. I'm not sure what the thought process was or the rationale was. But
I remember, but it would take too long.
Okay.
Explain.
Okay.
It wasn't our rationale, it was.
Okay, so it wasn't board driven.
No.
I wasn't sure because obviously I wasn't here, so I
Yeah,
didn't
no, it
really
wasn't
know the
board driven.
history. But it's very difficult for people to keep track and understand where their dollars are when things are all mushed together. So,
So I would say, as we're walking through this, to start to create
okay.
something.
I have to anyhow because I have to do they call it mapping at the state of Connecticut to be UCOA compliant.
Mhm.
And because we're not UCOA compliant, I need to do that. So that is a
Yep.
process I'll be working on anyhow. And if we do some kind of integration, I would need that anyhow.
Right.
Because we need to get our departments into the right sources. Like we have physical services. Well, if you go anywhere else, it's Public Works. So we need to get ourselves so that if someone picked up East Windsor's and picked up another town of a similar size, they would see Public Works. Oh, this is how much it cost us. Public Safety. And it has these 3 things in it. So we need to get ourselves in line where
Mhm.
everybody else is reporting.
Yeah.
So
Sounds
so that's
good.
my spiel on UCOA and accounts.
Right, so we are on to board member comments. Anything?
I went to the state capitol on Thursday and I attended the Connecticut Voices for Children annual state budget forum. They discussed in depth our different caps, bonding, spending, appropriations, volatility, and how it affects budgeting at the state level. Also discussed education and how there is going to be fewer grants available this year, so there will be more of a burden on the municipalities. That's it, just Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. See you all next year.
Kathy?
Saying Merry Christmas, everybody.
Mr. Baker?
No comment. Happy holidays.
Aaron? Merry Christmas.
Ditto, I guess.
Ditto? Ditto? Really, I have nothing either. Ditto, ditto. So, how about an adjournment? Motion?
I will be adjourned.
All right, second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Hey.
All right. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody. Yeah, sure. Yes, you're right. See you next year, right?